Hi, I'm Andy Thompson with AOR Farm Equipment. Now, oftentimes when we think about strip till, we probably think about the actual strip till tool or the application of strip till. But really, strip till is our system. It's the whole entire system that's replacing our conventional tillage or minimum tillage. It's our strip till system. And so it's not necessarily one tool that carries out our strip till system. We have to start from the combine, and then we work all the way through to the next year to the combine again. And that's going to encompass our strip till system. So when it comes to the actual strip till application, creating our seed bed and putting fertilizer, applying fertilizer and managing residue like we do in our strip till system, when it comes to actually carrying that out, a lot of times we think of a machine or this machine or that machine. But truth be told, what that machine looks like or what is actually on that machine, it can vary from one farm to the next. So how do we know what it is or what it takes for us to create or to build or to have a strip till machine? Well, there's options available, and at AOR Manufacturing we actually have multiple options just from us. So really we have to decide in our system, do we need tillage? How much tillage do we need? Of course, managing residue is going to be pretty important, so how are we going to manage that residue? And then what type of fertilizers do we want to place? Liquid, anhydrous, dry fertilizer, maybe a combination of those. So we have a lot of abilities in our strip till system and with our strip till equipment, the application equipment, to create the desired machine that we want. So perhaps that machine is going to be your traditional style where we're going to have a knife on there and we're going to be placing our fertilizers and we're going to be doing some tillage with it, or maybe that's going to be something that's just going to be maybe higher speed, lower disturbance to manage residue and really not do any tillage. And I think that's important to remember that in our strip till system, we actually don't necessarily have to do tillage or a certain amount of tillage. Maybe for us, maybe on our farm, we decide that really it doesn't take a lot of tillage, but just managing the residue and placing that nutrients. So some of the different tools that are available are going to give us different results. So here on this photo, you can actually see that this is a display unit that we had built that actually had 4 different options on there. So on the far left, we actually see, as the row unit has went through the field right here, we see on the far left that there's really very little disturbance at all. And so something like the high-speed, low disturbance 10,000 Magnum opener, that's what it's going to give you, is virtually no disturbance. We're placing our nutrients there. Or if we move to the right one, we actually see the 10,000 Magnum unit. The same unit, we're doing very little tillage, but the bare soil that you can see there is actually from the floating residue manager that we have up front. So by adding the residue manager on there, we're managing residue, we're placing our nutrients. We're still not really, in this instance, we're still not really worried about any type of tillage. So if we're on some highly erodible soils, if we're in a no-till circumstance, maybe with some cover crops, maybe the tillage doesn't appeal to us, but the residue management nutrient application does. And that could fit into our strip till system. Now, on the second to the right, we have the more traditional style, the 2984 Maverick HR Plus. That particular unit right there, you're going to have a knife of your choice on there. It's going to be a mole knife or a mini mole knife or a straight knife. You can put on whatever style of fertilizer application that you want, dry fertilizer, anhydrous, liquid, any combination of those. So that style right there, you're going to see much more disturbance from that unit because we've got the knife coming through the ground to create that tillage from us. So if we're new to strip till, if we have certain soil types where maybe that tillage, we feel that tillage is needed for our farms, that Maverick HR Plus unit is going to give us that. We're managing residue, we're doing our tillage 5 to 9 inches deep, and we're creating that nice little berm right there as well, that has the nutrients placed in there. And then on the far right, we have our 2984 Strip Freshener. That unit right there, of course, again, we're going to manage the residue. But that unit right there is going to give us some very controlled disturbance, typically a shallow disturbance. A lot of times we think of that as kind of a spring application, but we're going to be running at seed depth, a little above seed depth, a little below seed depth, depending on our conditions. And then we're going to be, making a beautiful seed bed that we can plant into. So let's take a little bit more in-depth look at what each one of these row units is. And the traditional style of strip till unit is our Maverick HR Plus unit. So this one right here, Yetter's been building this or a predecessor to this for 30 years. So one thing that's been true that whole time is we've always had the units on a parallel linkage. So we have everything tied together on one parallel linkage. We come back from that parallel linkage, we come to the front cutting coulter. It's going to cut through any residue that's on the top of the ground, and more importantly, it's going to break the soil surface so that way our knife is not ripping, but it's actually doing the controlled tillage. Beside that cutting coulter, we have a set of gauge wheels. Those gauge wheels are adjustable in 1-inch increments from 5 to 9 inches deep. And we're going to do that with these bolts right here. You can see a couple different holes that we have as well. We move on back and we get to the residue manager. We're going to have adjustments on that to make sure that we're moving all the residue out of the way, but not doing any tillage or dirt moving with that. Then we come behind the residue manager and we get into the knife. Now this particular unit, we're actually showing it with the mole knife. And again, you can put the mole knife or mini mole knife or a straight knife depending on your desired level of tillage. So this is where we not only are going to do our tillage, but also we have the ability then to place our anhydrous, our liquid or dry fertilizer or whatever combination we want. Then we have the disc sealers behind that. One thing that's unique about the Maverick HR Plus is the disc sealers are infinitely adjustable. So we have the pitch to change the angle disc, which is pretty common on strip till units, but we also could change the overall width of those disc sealers. So depending on our soil conditions or moisture levels, we may need to change those widths to make sure that we're actually getting a nice berm or a nice strip. And then we also have some adjustment here where we can change the fore and aft, where we can actually move these back or closer to the knife. Then that's going to give us an adjustment for the different soil conditions that we have. So if we have a beautiful fall, we're actually able to take these disc sealers, and you can get just from the action from the mole knife heaving, it's going to give us oftentimes a very nice looking strip. But if we get into a little bit more difficult conditions, more clay or specifically into more moisture, that's where oftentimes we struggle with strip till units to be able to make a nice berm. So one thing that's unique about this, like I said, is the infinite adjustments here. So we'll actually use a concave blade right here in conjunction with the knife so that you'll see a heaving action from the knife. And as that's heaving, our disc sealers are turning and we're actually cutting on the outside right here. So by doing that cutting, bringing all that soil up and inside of these discs, when these discs are spinning, we're going to get a churning action of the soil in there. So we can make these proper adjustments that we almost create a bottleneck inside there that's going to allow us to get this churning action, and then that's where we're going to have the ability in maybe not ideal conditions to be able to create a little bit of a rooster tail coming off the back of here. And then that's what's going to allow us, as we dig through that strip from the top of the strip to the bottom of the strip, we're going to be able to see a very nice consistent strip. Not a lot of voids and not a lot of larger clods or chunks. Very important with our adjustments, very important with our strip till units. And of course on the Maverick HR Plus, we also have the rock trip. So if we're in some rocky conditions, that knife will actually hit the rock, it'll come up and it'll trip and it'll come back in the ground as well. So this Maverick, as you can see, is a row unit. It's a modular design. We have the ability, we give you the ability to work with your dealer so that you can build the style of machine that you desire. So maybe that's anhydrous. Maybe you're already putting on anhydrous and you want to get to more of a strip till system. You want to continue to use the anhydrous. There's toolbars that are available, and then you can put some of the different anhydrous delivery or control systems. You can put them right on there and you can create the toolbar that you want. For some people, maybe you decide that you also want to put on your dry fertilizer, put on your P&K, and so we have that ability with this here. So you can work with your dealer and you can build your desired machine. So that's a pull type machine perhaps, or a 3-point mounted machine, and then you're going to have the different fertilizer delivery systems on there as well. So we give you that ability with Yetter. We recognize our specialties are the ground engaging, the creating the strip. So we partner throughout the industry with dealers and other manufacturers to give you the ability to create that entire package that you want. So maybe the traditional style of strip till, we've graduated from that, or maybe we don't feel as though that knife going through the ground is going to fit our situation. We have other options available. So here we have the Yetter Strip Freshener CC row unit. We make two different models of this. We make the Strip Freshener and the Strip Freshener CC. The CC stands for Cab Control. This is a newer style of a strip till unit. We've had this out since 2018. And this here, that Cab Control gives you the ability from the cab, you actually have, through pneumatic controls, you have adjustments on the airbag or the downforce of the actual row unit. We have up or down force on the floating row cleaner. And then we have pneumatic control up or down on the force on the rolling basket in the back there. And those are all key. Those are all very important things. So again, we actually have everything on one parallel linkage. So you're going to follow your ground contours and you're going to get row-to-row accuracy. So the residue manager up front, the residue, moving that residue first, very important. So we're going to move that out of the way. We come to the back, we're going to have the front cutting coulter. And in this scenario, what that cutting coulter is really doing for us is just cutting the center of our trench. It's cutting the center of that strip right there, so it's going to allow then everything behind that then to work better. We have the spoked gauge wheels beside that front cutting coulter. Your front gauge, gauge wheels right here are controlled by this screw assembly, and we can actually adjust them from 1.5 to 4.5 inches deep. So you're going to be very, very fine with our adjustments on this to make sure that we're maintaining the depth that you want. And that depth is going to be pretty important, especially if we're running this style of a machine in the springtime to create our seed bed right ahead of planting. There's going to be times where we're going to want to make sure that we're actually running that above seed depth, maybe 1/4 inch above seed depth, and we want to consistently maintain that same amount or that same depth. So that way when we're coming along, we're putting the seed in the same condition all the time. If we start varying and going anywhere from 1.5 to say 3 inches deep or anything like that, or we could see a lot of issues with drying out the soils, or just being ultimately different from one row to the next. So the depth control is very important on this. Then our tillage actually comes from these two shark tooth wheels. These two shark tooth wheels, as you can see, are inverted towards each other a little bit. And since the front coulter blade has already cut the center, now we have these shark tooth blades that are coming along, and they're actually doing, each side's doing each half. So it's actually able to mix that soil, to bring that up and to really mix that soil well. And then we go directly right into the rolling basket on the back of there. And that rolling basket, because we have the ability on the CC unit to control the amount of downforce on that, that's what is really working that strip, breaking those soil particles down and getting it consistent all the way from the top to the bottom of our strip and the whole width of the strip. That's giving you the ability to be able to run this right ahead of the planter and be able to go right behind that planter, right behind that strip till bar with your planter, and place every seed into a consistent seed zone. So the fertilizer aspects, what do we look at for this type of a unit being able to apply fertilizer? We don't have a knife on here. There's nothing going deep here. So this is not going to be an anhydrous style of a strip till unit, but for liquid and dry fertilizer, we most certainly have the abilities to do that. So we actually have two different options for placement of your fertilizer. And again, it depends on what your system, what you feel as though your system is going to require. So we have the ability to be able to put liquid or dry fertilizer right in the middle of the row. And maybe we're using a starter fertilizer and we're going to run this right ahead of the planter. So a 1034-0, we don't want to put that on the planter maybe, or we just don't have the ability to, or whatever. This, we have the ability to be able to put that starter fertilizer right around your seed, and we're actually going to be dropping that right behind this front cutting coulter right here, and then we mix it in a little bit with this strip, in our strip with these back units right here. You can do that with the liquid, or we can do that with the dry. Maybe in your strip till system, we want to put on our P&K, our dry fertilizers, and we want to do that in the spring, maybe to lessen our chances of soil erosion or anything like that. So maybe we'll end up running this a few weeks ahead of time or a month ahead of time in the spring, ahead of planting. And so we'll put that dry fertilizer and we'll mix it in throughout that strip. The strip freshener and the strip freshener CCs give you that ability. So maybe in your scenario there, that doesn't appeal to us, or that doesn't make sense, but maybe banding some nitrogen fertilizers off to the side does. And we have that ability here with the Strip Freshener CC as well. Now this side here, we're actually showing the dry fertilizer. So in this scenario here, you're going to be banding your dry fertilizer on the side. So whether that be a urea, or if you do want to get some P&K application, but you would rather band that from the side, this particular dry setup right here gives you the ability, you can do that on one side or both sides, to band that dry fertilizer. It'll be in your strip. It'll be whatever depth that your strip is running at, but it'll be on the side of your strip. Or something that's been very popular for us so far in the last few years of this machine is actually banding liquid fertilizer, like a 32%, for instance, on both sides of your strip during strip tilling, but ahead of the planter. So as you can see on the other side of this row, we actually have the liquid tube application, and the same thing as we said on the other side on the dry. What we're actually doing is we're putting that in the strip, we're putting that on the edge of the strip, and we're actually running this tube right here. We're actually applying the liquid fertilizer right into the little cavity that we've created on the edge of our strip. So we can put that on one side or both sides, and as I said, this has been very popular, allowing us to put on some 32 with the strip till bar. We've seen very good results with doing that. And then of course, if we do that, we put that in a little cavity, but then our basket comes along, and then the basket's actually going to, we get a lot of rooster tail from this, and this is actually going to allow us to create that consistency with the strip, and we're covering that fertilizer up, and we find that fertilizer a nice little band on one or both sides of the strip at the depth of our strip. So it ends up being about 4.5 inches to both sides of the strip. It's worked very well for us. Now, something else appealing about the strip freshener in this maybe shallower tillage is the speed and the horsepower requirements. While your traditional style of strip till may take 20-25 horsepower per row, and that's traveling at say 6 miles an hour, a machine like this is actually going to give us the ability to travel 8 to 10, or possibly even faster, 8 to 10 miles per hour. We're going to work pretty shallow, but we're going to do all that by using actually about 10 horsepower per row. So it's not uncommon to put 300 horsepower tractors on 24 row machines. So we have a lot of abilities with this here. But as we said earlier, I mean, this is a modular design. We are tying it together with the pneumatic system there, but a modular design, you have the ability to build whatever spacing and however many rows that you desire, so you can match up with your planter. So maybe for us, we have a 24-row planter, and we want to go out and get a 24-row toolbar, and then we're going to put this on there. Maybe we're also going to carry some liquid fertilizer on that toolbar or pull a cart behind that. We have that ability with this style of a unit. So very popular. In the last few years, we've had a lot of success with this, where we are placing that nitrogen, like I said, ahead of the planter, running this, making a beautiful strip, a consistent strip, to place that seed in there. So maybe for your strip till system, maybe that disturbance, again, we're on some maybe highly erodible ground or something like that, we just don't really want to get into too much disturbance there. We have the ability with something like the 10,000 Magnum unit that you see here, where you can actually make virtually no ground disturbance, and we can still place our fertilizer. We can do that. This style of a unit here is going to be that high speed, low disturbance. Horsepower, we're probably talking about 20 horsepower per row, but that's going to allow us to go 10 miles per hour. So we're going to be able to place that nutrients. We can place that nutrients 3 to 5 inches deep. So anhydrous or liquid or dry, we have that ability with this particular unit. So we've got a knife, a spring-loaded knife on the inside here that's going to do just a little bit of disturbance down there in the cavity we've created. And then that's going to allow us then to discharge the fertilizer down there into that trench. We have the walk in tandem on the back here. We have the ability to adjust, and it's going to make sure and close that seed trench. So we're using something like anhydrous, for instance. We obviously have to make sure and we close that up and get a good sealing of the anhydrous. This is going to give us the ability to do that, and then also firm that ground up right behind that. So again, if we're talking about some highly erodible ground or something like that, this unit right here, we're going to close that up and seal that back shut so that we're going to be less prone to any washing that you see from that. So maybe for us, the fertilizer application is important, the tillage is not so important, but the residue management is, and so we have the ability here to add this floating residue manager, and you also have with a Yetter floating row cleaner the ability to put something like the clean sweep system on, So this right here, as we showed at the beginning, where we have a cleared strip, a nice residue-free zone, we have our nutrient place below that, but we just don't have much of disturbance. This particular system here can do that for us. So again, the strip till, oftentimes we think of a strip till application tool, and that's obviously important to our strip till system, but the application tool isn't necessarily our strip till system. Our strip till system is the entirety from the combine pass the previous year to the combine pass the next year. So the residue management, the nutrient application, the seedbed preparation, those are all important aspects of our strip till system. But what that machine to carry out your application process looks like can be different. And at Yetter, we give you the ability to design your own, so to speak. Work with your dealer, and we first of all decide what it takes for your situation, and then we create the entire machine, or we create the machine for your situation.